The settlement on Kepler 442b had stood for 3 generations, a testament to humanity's stubborn refusal to remain confined to a single world. But in all those years, no one had seen anything quite like Sarah. Her skin was paper white, her hair the color of fresh snow, and her eyes held the pale pink of Earth's distant dawn. The albinism that marked her as different among her own kind had saved her life when the Carium invasion began. While others fought and fled, Sarah had hidden in the white salt flats, invisible against the crystalline landscape, watching her people fall to the alien pack hunters. The Carium called themselves the apex predators of the galaxy. They traveled in hierarchical packs, their society built on strength and dominance. Their alpha king, Vexthor, had conquered 47 worlds, absorbing their strongest warriors into his ever-growing legion. They had expected humanity to be no different, another primitive species to be dominated, culled, or assimilated. They had not expected Sarah. She lived alone now in a prefabricated shelter on the edge of the ruined colony. The Carium had taken what they wanted and moved on, leaving her world a graveyard. But Sarah remained, tending to the graves of her family, speaking to the wind, surviving on salvaged rations and rainwater. The other humans who survived had scattered to the stars, refugees seeking safer havens. Sarah had chosen to stay. On the night everything changed, she was repairing a solar panel when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the wind or the native wildlife. It was a low, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat amplified through stone. It called to something deep within her, a frequency that resonated in her bones. Without thinking, without fear, Sarah walked to her shelter's door and opened it. The yard before her was filled with them. Hundreds of Carium warriors stood in perfect formation, their wolf-like bodies covered in bioarmor that shimmered in the moonlight. At their center, towering above the rest, stood Vexthor himself. The Alpha King's 4 eyes burned with an amber light, and his mane, a cascade of metallic silver, rippled like liquid metal in the breeze. Sarah should have been terrified. Any rational human would have sealed the door, activated distress beacons, reached for a weapon. Instead, she stood in the doorway, her slight frame wrapped in a threadbare thermal blanket, and stared back at the alien king. "You heard the calling," Vexthor said, his voice a rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself. His translator rendered the words in flat, emotionless human standard, but Sarah could hear the confusion beneath. "Impossible. You are not Carium. You are not even pack-bonded." "I heard something," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the surreal nature of the moment. "What do you want?" The Alpha King descended from his warriors, approaching her with movements that were both predatory and cautious. Up close he was massive, easily 3 meters tall, his presence overwhelming. Yet Sarah did not retreat. "I want to understand," Vexthor said, lowering his massive head to her level. "The calling is sacred. It is how an alpha finds their omega, their balance, their completion. It is a song that only one destined pair can hear, and yet you, a human, heard my call." Sarah's scientific mind, trained in xenobiology before the invasion, began to piece together the implications. The Carium pack structure wasn't just social, it was biological, perhaps even quantum entangled on some level. And somehow, impossibly, she had resonated with this alien king's frequency. "Maybe," Sarah said slowly, "you've been looking at humanity wrong." Vexthor's warriors shifted, low growls rumbling through their ranks. But the Alpha King raised a clawed hand, demanding silence. "Explain. You see us as weak because we don't have your strength, as chaotic because we don't have your pack structure, but you're wrong about what makes us human." Sarah stepped forward, closing the distance until she could have touched the Alpha King's armored chest. "We survive because we adapt. We thrive because we bond, not through biology or dominance, but through choice. Every human who has ever loved, every friendship, every alliance we've ever made, they weren't ordained by genetics. We chose them." She pointed to the graves beyond her yard, dozens of markers in the moonlight. "My pack died defending this world. Not because instinct demanded it, because they chose to. Because they chose each other." Her pale eyes met Vexthor's burning gaze. "If your calling reached me, maybe it's because I chose to listen. Not because I'm your destined anything, but because I'm still here. Still standing. Still choosing to face tomorrow even when everything says I should give up." The silence that followed was absolute. 500 Carium warriors stood frozen, watching their supposedly infallible Alpha King confronted by a single unarmed human. Vexthor was quiet for a long moment, his alien mind processing concepts that his species had never encountered. Destiny versus choice, biological imperative versus free will, strength through dominance versus strength through resilience. You would reject the calling? He asked finally. I'm saying the calling doesn't own me, Sarah replied. Nothing does. Not fate, not biology, not you. If there's something between us, some connection, then it exists because we both choose it. Or it doesn't exist at all. The Alpha King threw back his head and released a sound that shook the ground. Not a howl of rage, but something else. Something that might have been laughter, or wonder, or the sound of a worldview shattering and reforming. When Vexthor looked at Sarah again, something had changed in his eyes. The Carium have conquered 47 worlds, he said. We have never encountered a species that could teach us something new. He lowered himself to one knee, bringing his massive form level with Sarah's height. Perhaps that is why the calling led me to you. Not to dominate, but to learn. Sarah smiled then, a small, tired expression that held the weight of everything she'd survived. Then start by learning this. If you want to understand humanity, you don't fill our yards with warriors. You knock on the door and ask to come in. As dawn broke over Kepler 442b, the Alpha King of the Carium sat in a human shelter, drinking synthetic coffee and listening to an albino woman explain the concept of choice. And the galaxy would never be quite the same.